Passing through the veil of mystery, seeking answers no one is brave to ask. This is Bound to Truth.
Hey everybody, welcome to Bound to Truth. This is Chris Lopez on this beautiful Sunday. I have a very special episode with Russ Victorian and Mark Coley from Search4Spirits. It's a fantastic episode. These guys are wonderful ghost hunters, paranormal hunters, and also with what they do with not just hunting, but what they do to help help other people's lives be better from what they've been either tormented with and things they've gone through. It's pretty diverse, but definitely I would say these guys have great hearts and definitely worth a listen. And I will definitely put a link below to how to reach them, especially if it's around your neck of the woods or in Minnesota. And, I like to expand that platform for people who may need or searching for help in regards to what may be plaguing them in their home with themselves and so forth. But I definitely vouch for these guys. They're wonderful. So definitely enjoy this episode. And before I go, I'm going to take a break for about 2 or 3 weeks. I know I'll be doing a live event this Friday. Just been exhausted. I've pumped a lot of episodes out, and I want to make sure that I keep the quality high and just try to evolve the process and on this podcast. And so, yeah, I'm tired. One of the things that I've done recently with the Supernatural Alliance with John Hershey and Xander, we just got back yesterday from out in an area. I'm really going to undisclose because we're doing a film on it, and there was a lot of heavy activity. It was the first time actually camping in an area where it's extremely haunted because of a lot of tragedy, but also a lot of other cryptids and Bigfoots and also UFOs. And I will say this, that I'm still processing for the moment, and I'm exhausted. And so I'm going to take a bit of a break to just process it all and make sure I have my own personal affairs in order and make sure to re-found my ground so I can continue doing this platform and making sure I'm doing everybody the justice you deserve on these topics when it comes to everything that that I've talked about. Other than that, again, how can you reach us? Feel free to email at boundtotruth34@gmail.com. If you have questions, comments, you want to be a guest on the podcast, or just want to share your story and not be on the podcast and just keep it anonymous just to feel listened or heard, please do that. Again, on Spotify, Buzzsprouts, YouTube, Apple, Amazon, Instagram, Threads, and other platforms that you really enjoy. Other than that, I want you to really enjoy this episode. And again, God bless, and see you on the other side. Good night. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Bound to Truth. I have 2 special guests here. And actually, I forgot to ask the other guest his name, but I'll choose the first one. Then I'll ask the other one, so forgive me on that one. Tonight, I have a gentleman who has been highly recommended and praised by Randy Bauer, which you've heard quite a few times on my show, not just as a guest, but just becoming a really great friend. Tonight, I have Russ Victorian from Search4Spirits Investigations and Healing. And the other, and I'm sorry I didn't ask this before. Gosh, I'm an idiot. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's Mark Coley.
Mark Coley? You said, wait, Holy?
It's Mark Coley.
Oh, Coley.
Yeah, Coley.
We'll call you Mark Coley. Mark Coley here today. So, guys, thank you for being on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And really appreciate the time. I know you guys are very busy with what you do and the fight that you go out each day, not just in the physical realm. I'm not sure how much involved is that, but just in the spiritual battles as well, involved in that. Randy has brought me to you guys, and really grateful to have you on. And just want you guys to first introduce yourselves, talk about yourself, and what got you started doing the Search for Spirits investigations and healing. And then we'll go from there, and I'll ask some questions. So take it away. Who wants to go first?
Why don't you go? Okay, so a number of years ago, before I started doing this, this is kind of what propelled me towards it. I was reading a newspaper. It was on Halloween, and it was about a family in one of our towns here in Minnesota that they were plagued with spirits. And this group went in, and they told them that they were on a burial ground, and that they had like 13 spirits, and then they left them. So a year later, they're still haunted. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't seem right. And I really felt compelled to start doing this, to start helping people. And then a mutual friend of ours that we, had both been talking to about this stuff for years, she's like, hey, you guys need to get together. And then Russ and I talked, and we've been doing it for, 13, 14, 15 years.
Since a long time. We kicked off, and I founded the organization in 2012, and I was out in Kentucky at the time doing some work. And I just got really curious about things because I was having dreams that, in short order, departed dead people were talking to me or showing me things about their life. And I had been having those dreams dating back to when I was young, probably 8 or 9 that I remember. And so that level of curiosity and interest had been there a long time. And in 2012, I was in Kentucky, and I just suddenly had a flurry of activity of being able to go to a number of places that were considered haunted, so to speak. And at that time, some of the shows were just starting to come on TV, such as Ghost Hunters, I think was one of the first ones probably. Mm-hmm. And when I saw that, I was like, boy, that looks like me, something I would do,
Right.
And so it kind of evolved. I started the team in 2012. It was within a year and a half that Mark and I connected. And we connected not only as an interest in the paranormal, but like he said, we had a strong desire to help both the living and the dead, to reconcile and provide, resolution to families, that they would have an opportunity to find peace in their home, and that the spirit would be able to find that same peace moving on.
Wow.
And so we really worked hard at it for a while. We had to go through our bumps and bruises, trial and error.
Okay, cool. So with that, one thing that we were sharing before we started the podcast is that you guys are believers, right?
Correct.
Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior, which I am as well. And I haven't met people, besides John, but you talk about the shows like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, there's shows like Paranormal State. But to have believers on and doing this, that's something unique because, being raised, I shared with you earlier, raised Catholic, and no matter what church, there's always some kind of boxing of things. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not criticizing churches out there. I want to make that clear. That's not what it is. But you guys seem like we're taking the gift of the Holy Spirit with us and going out in the battlefield. What's that like for you to do what you do? And also, what's been the reception from other believers as well?
So I think that one thing that we experienced is that once we started getting more into this part of it, the spiritual warfare, we noticed that naturally the spiritual warfare cases started coming to us supernaturally. Not that we'd even tried that hard. They just started coming to. All of a sudden, other teams were calling us from around the state saying, we have that type of case. We know you're equipped to handle it. Will you come along with us, or will you go there and help this family? And it evolved fairly quickly, don't you think?
It did, yeah. And I think with sometimes you run into it it seems kind of fringe as far as just, if you're just going to church, you're a regular believer, and they don't always understand it, kind of until you describe what you do. I've talked to a few different pastors, and they're like, I'm glad you guys do what you do. I mean, it's nothing that I'm equipped to do.
Right.
So there's been some pretty good reception for it.
Okay.
I think.
Right. Yeah, we've gotten calls to just sit down and have dinner with different clergy from different, and just talking through some of this that not everybody experiences.
So when you guys have been called from different clergy, what is it? Is it from all types of Christians, like, Baptists, Protestants, I don't know, even Catholics, Lutherans, or has it been any one particular denomination, or has it just been all sorts around?
Not one in particular, I would say, that I can.
Yeah, it's most of who I've talked to have been kind of under the Protestant umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you guys started this and this started happening, it sounds, there's this destiny in this road laid in front of you. What's trying to articulate this question? When you're helping these families, what has it been mainly? Is it more of hauntings in the house, like poltergeists, possessions, a little bit of both? What's been the common theme, you would say, or common thing you guys been dealing with your investigations and what you're doing?
It's a mixed bag of everything, really.
It truly is. It's a variety of cases. Sometimes they come in little runs of a certain type of case, and then you get something else. But it's undeniable that there are certain factors that we run into, especially in spiritual warfare, and that might be that somewhere in that history there's been some level of occult activity, whether it be dabbling or another family member that's close. There's a lot of times in the supernatural warfare there's been some type of occult or maybe even satanistic type activities. Not always, because some cases might include, let's just say, I forgot what I was going to say. What was I going to say? Items. I'm sorry. There it is. Might involve items.
Right.
So let's say, for instance, we've had cases where people who might have been Christian at one time, and they suddenly are kind of leaning into the false god, the idolatry, and some of these different things, sometimes not even conscious of the fact that they're doing so.
Mm-hmm.
And they get involved in things that they don't realize are occult, or get their hands on something. Maybe it's a good luck charm that they received in a bracelet from another country.
Right.
But they're a Christian. And that energy doesn't match up.
Yeah.
So a number of things like that. We also get it in the American Indian cases as well, sometimes, where if you take items that are natively made, they are made by a family or within the culture. And we had a case in Wisconsin we went out to where there was growling. The family hadn't slept, the parents hadn't slept in their bedroom for a year because they kept hearing growling in there.
Mm-hmm.
And we found out in the end, long story short, that they had mixed native handmade jewelry with jewelry that was made cheaply from another country.
Mm-hmm.
And it was mixed. And the native spirit that was out there was very, very upset by this mixture of this. And as soon as we broke them apart and separated them, and said some blessings on the house, and, things got better, much better. They never had growling ever again.
Wow. Jeez.
So deciphering what is hidden behind the scenes that's causing, something's always causing the event to happen.
Yeah, it could even be, we had a case recently where the lady was drawn to this doll, and she brought spirits in with that doll. And it was going to get another person too, because they were fascinated with it.
Right.
So it was just this doll being passed around, and the spirits were going
Jumping
with it.
from family to family.
Yeah.
Because it had been with one family, then it went to this family, and then there's another family already waiting to get their hands on it. And this thing was just getting a hold of these vulnerable people, and it was just a problem.
It's interesting you say that. When it comes to objects and even just rituals itself, I forgot the podcast my brother sent to me. It's a really good podcast. I think I'm not sure it's called the Exorcist Files, but it talked about this Christian couple that really strong within the church, and they moved, got a job opportunity, found a big people church, as they normally do, right? Communicate, communion, and so forth. And one of them, and again, I'm not saying this is bad. I'm not, maybe you guys can agree or disagree. I'm not trying to talk bad about this, but she started participating in yoga. And she didn't realize that the certain poses that we're doing were great, whereas basically, because yoga comes from like a religious thing, right? And the certain poses that she was doing was basically ritualistic without her knowing. And she became extremely infested and possessed. And it's funny how you think, yoga is a big thing around the world, right? There's other things out there that are big around the world. It's supposed to be healing or spiritual and so forth, but it's almost like, you want to test the spirits. But you're right. It's not. It can happen to Christians, and also can happen to objects. It's funny where I'm a big fan of going to like garage sales and getting some stuff. I'm a drummer, so I like old cymbals, and they sound better because they're older. But we're paired away. I'm cautious of buying objects from people's houses. Because I don't know what's in them. It may look cool, but I don't know what's in them or what's been contained in them. Like those spirit boxes they talk about, right? Type of thing. So with that and what you guys have done and experienced, like when it comes to objects and so forth. So what has been, you would say, any stories or experiences that have stuck out with either people you've helped and taken care of, or even after any aftermath things that has happened afterwards that has been put to rest, or that sometimes still continues on? Any thoughts on that?
I would say, like I say, just kind of leading on from where we were at there with objects and utilizing different things like spirit boxes and stuff. Like I said, we're not here to judge people and what they use and what they do, but we talk specifically about the facts of the cases that we've had. And we're not going to say something unless it's specifically a case we've encountered. For instance, we've had several cases now, that have involved tarot cards. And I'm not saying that they're necessarily bad for everybody. I mean, it's not for me to decide, but I am saying that there are people that are not using them properly, perhaps not closing them properly,
or shouldn't use them,
at all because they don't have foundations and protections, and they're letting things loose, just like you said. All of a sudden in the yoga, if you didn't have a good foundation, good protections, you're vulnerable. Right. And the next thing you know, you got a strange, unclean spirit roaming around your apartment, which we had. And the lady is thinking about committing suicide because she has this distressed spirit that's pacing at the end of her bed day and night.
Yeah, and her mom said that when she was in the apartment, she was the angriest person she ever knew. Like,
nothing rational, just distressed. And the minute she leave her apartment and was away from her apartment for a while, everything was back to normal. So that distressed spirit, and we've run into that where distressed spirits have run over, their energy has run over into the human being that is nearby. We've had it in hotels, in apartments, in you name it, houses. We've run into that where distressed spirits, they have a way of affecting the people in the house. That's a pretty common theme.
And I want to add to that too. Having spirits in your presence has a lot of effects, because we'll hear people say, "Oh yeah, I get along with my spirit in my house. It's no problem." We did a case one time where the lady was sitting in a chair and she was just there. And it wasn't really for her. It was because she was concerned about other family and stuff like that. But as soon as we had cleared that house, she was up and about, and even her friends were commenting on how much energy she seemed to have.
Yeah.
So that's the spirits in her house were causing fatigue for her, causing her and her husband to fight.
Just a weight on her chest, I think she even said.
Yeah, weight on her chest. Yeah. So it can really have a negative effect. Like you said, if it's distressed, it can create that kind of anxiety, that distress thing in the human.
Well, it's that, like, when I hear about people, like when it comes to spirits and demonic, it's, think of possession. It's not always possession. Possession is a very extreme thing. You guys know better than I would, just, more of your expertise. But I would say a lot of spirit of oppression, like what you're talking about. I could say I've had mine. I'll tell you this. I've said this maybe before on the podcast. I a short story, played with the Ouija board when I was 19. And I believed in spirits so forth, but I thought it was kind of BS with the people I was playing with or playing something with me. And one night I just called it out saying, you know what, you're not real. I challenge you. What are you going to do? Do something. And that night I was going home. And I thought something was in the back of my car. But of course, me thinking, I prints out of my mind, right? I'm like, it's just in my head. I get back to the house where my stepmom's at. My stepsister's on the computer. I go sleep on the couch. I wake up around 2 or 3 in the morning. And I'm paralyzed. That sleep process. And yep, I tried to say the name of Jesus, couldn't speak. And then when I finally broke out of it, my stepmom comes running out of the room, screaming, saying something put like its head on my lap or something like that. Told her what happened that night. She slapped me silly. And that's when I became like, okay, this stuff's real, right? And by the way, it took years to get out of that sleep process. I've had sleep paralysis for the last 8 years. It was, so I'm just saying, like, it's a real thing, and like when you don't shut the door on something like that, it becomes real. Now, my next question with that, we're talking about objects, you talk about tarot cards. What's your it's like, hey, if you don't close it, not, what about Ouija boards? I mean, is it just like, be careful, close the door, or if it's like a big no, do not mess with it? What's your guys' impression on that?
Well, I think the thing with Ouija boards is you could have 10 people do it and 9 of them don't have anything happen to them, and then 1 does. So in reality, it's not, like you mentioned, it's not anything to mess with really, because you can open yourself to things that you don't understand and doesn't really like you very much, for one thing,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's no. I think it's a very dangerous thing for people to dabble in.
Well, it's like that biblical scripture in a way. Everything's permissible, not everything's permissible, and not everything's beneficial. So when it comes to what you guys are doing, do people reach out to you mostly, or do you guys do research on certain areas, like, oh, this is a haunted area, this is a place I want to go explore? What's that like? How does that process work with the work and the mission that you guys do? How does that come to play?
So we've got 2 different approaches. We get contacted. I would say most of our cases are contact either through other groups or the people themselves. And what we go out and look for, I like to call it recreational, because it's us going out having fun, testing equipment, getting together with our members that we don't always or aren't always able to get together with. So there's a haunted house, we go. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we break it up. We have our business side of it, where the work where we're helping the people, and then the other side where we're just kind of having fun with it.
Because we only bring usually 3 people at the most to a house case. Maybe a business we might bring 4, but due to the size, due to the element of of listening and meditating and different things, we roll in with a very, very small group when we do a house call. And now, if we've got 15 people that kind of go with us to different ones, they all don't always work together. So these events that we have offer them a chance to get used to the new equipment we have, work with maybe new members or existing members once again, and it's just kind of a training event.
Yeah, kind
And
of work on the craft.
Yeah.
Getting to.
So then when we do need one of them for a house call, they're prepared
Gotcha.
and ready to come along with us.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so you're basically expanding your team because it's like, hey, if someone's not available, is it kind of like where if someone's not available, we have this other person prepared to join us depending on.
Correct.
Okay. So when it's interesting you bring that up regarding the team members involved, right? So you say 3 and then sometimes 4. Like, is it, when you talk about that, is it more at that place at the same time? Does it matter if it's like 15 people total going to a place? I mean, is it better? Is it more? Is it? I don't say it's better. Is it better to have a smaller group when you go somewhere? I mean, I know if it's a bigger place, but do you keep the investigation small when it comes to your team members?
So normally when it's a house call,
yeah,
we're going to a place and there might be already several family members there.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it'll be just Russ and myself go. We kind of evaluate as we get the cases, and then sometimes, like you said, we'll invite others with us. But typically, the house calls are set, so it depends on the one house in the cities was ginormous.
Right,
we could have had 15 people there, but for the most part, it's small. And when we do these recreational investigations, then we can bring, easily the 15 or more if we need.
Gotcha.
There's usually bigger places.
Okay.
Places to cover and
a lot depends on that. We do an initial interview over the phone prior to going there, which helps us identify what type of situation we might be encountering. And if we think or feel in our hearts or in our sensitivities that this is going to be a case that might involve some darker energy, more of a heavier supernatural case, or like I say, a heavy occult type case, we are very particular about, we ask certain members to go who might have experience in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we feel it's so bad, Mark and I do all those cases by ourselves.
Gotcha. So
we don't want to put anybody in danger. They're all got jobs. Everybody's got something to do. Families.
Well, I've heard about that with like priests and exorcists, like who, when they go to people's houses, that they have, what's called the handlers, like the muscles, and I'm curious about this because I know what they do is they pray, they do a confession, they do that stuff because it's like you don't want something to jump from one to another. From it sounds like that kind of an expanding infestation. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of like the approach you guys do after you kind of do some research, investigations, interviews with the family or the person involved? How does that process work before it's like, hey, this is legit. What's your approach when it comes to that before you start your investigation? Is there prayer involved, or what's that look like?
Well, I would say that Mark and I each have our own process of preparation,
right?
Our ways and prayers and different things we go through. And it does depend on a little bit on your, all your upbringing and what church you belong to, maybe this and that.
Yeah.
And we're perfectly comfortable with our situation because it offers a variety, a varied look. When we roll into a house, we can roll into a house that's a Catholic family or a Protestant family, or even, other types of denominations, because one of the things that I've always tried to do is attend different denominations. So a lot of times when people ask, I say, well, what do you belong to? I said, well, I'm not non-denominational. I said, I'm all denominational. If it's a church that's the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, I'm all denominational because I need to be prepared. Mark and I need to be prepared to walk into a house of any type of religion and be prepared to at least have some general knowledge. So that's very important.
Or they don't have a religion.
Or in some cases they don't. Agnostic, or they're atheists, or this, and that's fine too. That's part of the process of.
You know what? I have a question around that, and I'm not sure if you pop this guesstimate in your head. What would you say the percentage of the issue of the situations you guys have been into, these situations where people having these infestations, are Christian and non-Christian?
I think it leans heavier towards the non-Christians.
I do too, or just very lukewarm.
Okay.
There's people that um, may believe in God, but they're just not practicing anything at the time. And it's just not having that relationship with God isn't a concern to them, and until they get into some type of trouble.
Right.
And so, but one thing we have noticed, without a doubt in our minds, I think as far as cases go, where we go in there to do supernatural work, spiritual warfare work, and we're in there with a family that has faith, it's almost literally 100% resolution. Whereas if we go into a home or a business to families that are non-believing, it doesn't always turn out the way we'd like, because we need the family's energy, their faith, to help complete the work that needs to be done.
Oh, this is a whole different thing. I was going to say with bars, you can go and clean a bar up, and then every night they bring in people with all kinds of different emotions, anger and sadness. There's happiness and stuff, but it's easy for a place like that to get back into it because it's a whole just different dynamic.
Right. You can hire the helpmate to clean your house once, but if you don't keep it up, it's just going to get all dirty again.
Right.
And it's cool you guys brought that point up, because my next thought was just like, people that you go and help, and it's a successful cleaning the station, but I think that at the end of the day they got to make that choice to continue that. Am I right? Type of thing. It's because it's like, hey, we're here to guide you, but you got to choose to. Is that kind of?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, and it's very important as a ministry per se. We also have what we would call the Search for Heaven ministry, which evolved out of this type of work, where we put a lot of the tools out there for people to follow up on after we leave. And or even prior to us coming, there's different tools on there that they can use and look through and see what works for them to help them with this situation. But we follow up on every case that we do, and we prescribe things to them based on their family and their situation. We prescribe to them things that they can do to improve and keep the energy moving, especially in that first 72 hours. It's very, very important.
It's like going to the doctors and you have a bad cold. It's like, make sure you take this pill till it's gone and keep yourself
absolutely healthy. And we do that at every case. Yep.
Right. Have you guys had any repeat situations with people, like multiple times that you're like, hey, it's been good, and crap, it's back type of thing? And again, it goes back maybe like we talked about, the choice of them wanting to be better. Have you guys had those situations, those cases before?
We've had a handful of them. And sometimes they're, so Russ mentioned the 72 hours.
Yeah.
And so during that time, some unusual things can happen, and that's another thing we, suggest that they're careful during that time.
Right.
They might have somebody show up at their door that they've never seen, or they haven't seen in a long time. They have problems with them or whatever. Sometimes it could be packages, just weird things that if it kind of tweaks them a little bit, they're like, something's wrong with it. They're potentially bringing spirits back in.
Right.
So one of them this was kind of extreme, but a neighbor showed up with a bottle of alcohol.
Like the day after we were there.
The day after we were there, and asked to be invited in. And she came in with a bottle of spirits and other spirits. And she sat there for a little bit, drank the liquor, didn't talk to him, and left. So she just came and did her job and brought spirits back. Another one, this was interesting. It was the day after we did her case. She went to a cemetery and brought stuff back with her. And she said, I don't know what possessed me to do that. I never go to cemeteries. That's just not something she would do normally.
You know what?
So, it's a supernatural world, no doubt about it. And they are able to manipulate quite easily when they want to. Some are um, very strong with their energy, and they can do a lot of manipulation.
Well, and I also think it's like that intent, and like how the Lord works in mysterious ways for good, so does evil, and like I could be wrong about that, but it's almost like, well, it's like you do your thing, you cleanse it, and then the devil's like, I'm gonna talk to this person to bring over a bottle of alcohol. They may not know, like, hey, I'm just making a great gesture, right? But in that person, they got to make a choice saying, no, thank you for this, but so forth. And it's funny how that works. And I know people may say that's kind of paranormal, but it's like Christ talks about be alert, be aware, and it's not saying people are evil. Just watch out because we don't battle against flesh and blood. We battle against the darkness, the spiritual principalities, right? Because, I don't believe God makes bad people. I think people just make poor choices. And I'm one of them, type of thing. Yeah, that's interesting. So when it comes to, those repeated events, has there been any like afterwards, like it's finally broken, or has there been cases where it's just gone so downhill that it's just hard to go and to like you have to walk away from it? Has that happened before?
I don't think we've ever really walked away from a case. Sometimes we have situations where they're complex, where there might be multiple types of situations going on in the same house or business. And so you might battle one night with one part and then come back a second night and work on the other part. It's complex.
You use it like kind of, excuse the term, like a legion type of thing, where it's not one thing; it's a multiple of things are going on in this.
Well, for instance, we had one case where we had a demonic energy in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
That was just one part of that case.
Why is it got to be in the basement, man? No, sorry.
Fear factor.
I think so.
It's going to creep you out, make your phones ring, and do all kinds of things.
Yeah,
turn the boiler on. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
So, we handled that part of the case, and then we ended up coming back because, we had energy on 3 different floors.
Wow.
And one thing that we do more now than we did in the early years is when we go through and we reconcile and cleanse, we almost always now we go to every floor of the house or building, because we found that just because you're inside of a house, maybe the basement and the first floor are in one frequency, the third floor might be in a completely different frequency.
I agree. I've heard about that where where it's like you talk about like someone's like, hey, we have something in our bedroom, we're sleeping on the couch.
Yeah.
It's like it's almost like, well, there is a hive in this area, so I'm going to stay away from that hive in that corner and get out of that room.
Right.
Yeah. When it comes to doing, you talk about how it could be infested in different levels of the house depending on the size and so forth. Like you said, each area is different. What's that look like walking around and doing the cleansing? Can you elaborate and share how you guys do it? It may be different in different places, but maybe a general idea how like the approach is.
Well, we have, like I say, generally the final stages are the same. We use some of the same prayers. Depending upon the depth of the infestation, as you might say, depending on the depth of it, depends upon how deep we go with the cleanse. In one case, we might walk through with blessed sage and say some prayers, offer crossover opportunities. And the next one, we may have to go room to room and do a blessing with holy water. And the next one, we may have to go room to room and mark the walls and the ceilings with oils and stuff. The cases really decide themselves, and supernaturally, I usually get some type of a feeling of what I need to do. And then Mark and I talk about the situation, and we come up with a game plan, and then we go ahead and cleanse. But it always involves trying, the reconciling of the deceased souls that are there. And depending on the situation, some cases where the family's like not totally on board. They're like, well, yeah, we heard them say that they're stuck. Yeah, why don't you offer it to them? But, don't force anybody out. We kind of want the family's support a little bit in the process.
Right.
So, but in a case where we have a family that's really just distressed by the energy in the house, we have another process where we escort to reconciliation the energies that are in the house. So there's multiple levels. It all depends upon the investigation and what level.
Right. So I would say the approach is pretty similar. You go into it and then you're adjusting as you go. And, whether it's more intense or what, we're just always reacting to the things we're running into and the needs that family or place has.
So it's almost like a mechanic or a contractor is like, well, I don't need a hammer for this. I need a saw. Or you know what? I don't need a screwdriver. I need I'm not a mechanic, so different tools. It sounds like that. So it just depends on what you're going on during the experience. Like, okay, that tool's not working. I think we're going to need this tool. Is that kind of like pretty much what you're saying? Similar,
but it's all mentally between us.
Right.
We don't keep trying. We know before we start. This is exactly what we're going to do, and so we don't build on it. We just decide mentally, usually a lot of times through messages and stuff, just kind of the mental knowledge that comes to you and
what you're running into
and what you're running into.
Okay.
And we've changed, we've grown, we've changed over the years too. We used to do a lot of the work right at the very, very, very end of the investigation. But now if we run into a dark energy, unclean spirit, so to speak, we act on that immediately. We don't give it a chance to even get accustomed to us being there. The minute we run into it, we act on it and remove the dark energies.
Okay. So another question for you guys is, and again, this is me being Catholic, how Catholics do their own investigation where like, let's make sure it's not psychological, that's, they have to have the different stages of, like to get their check marks, right? Of like, okay, this fits this fits this, let's do an exorcism. Have you, and I have some thoughts on that too, by the way, that I'll share, but I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts, is that, have you guys ran into situations where this is more psychological, or it's like, no, it's definitely spirit? How do you guys try to approach that, or what's your thoughts on that in general when it comes to people?
So I would say, so this is an investigation, and part of it is getting the interview. We show up, we do another interview, get a tour, and, you're evaluating the people, but also the environment. So, we run into places with mold issues, and these people were getting sick, and they thought it was, I think, a supernatural issue.
Mm-hmm.
But like high EMF can cause problems. So we really haven't run into people that it's just in their minds. Mm-hmm. Like the evidence supports what they're claiming.
Mm-hmm.
I did have one time where I thought maybe that was the case, but it was his, however he was, that's how he reacted to everything. So when he's telling his story at first about the paranormal part of it, it seemed odd, but then he talked about the fog outside the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Well, it's interesting because the reason I share that is because, like, and I'm not trying to take a step back of, like, how, like, back in the day where, the Catholics was like, oh, it's demon possession, everything's demon possession, but then now we find out, well, people may have OCD or ADHD or whatever you want to call it. Personally, myself, I think we're over categorizing things at times, that's me personally. But sometimes I feel like it's still connected one way or another because we are spiritual beings, right? And just like, how as Christians, as Catholic, we use things to symbolize things. We use things, I have a scapular, I have a rosary, those type of things. But it's just like, how, like, if someone's like, oh, they were just high on PCP, or they were just on cocaine, or they're just really drunk. They weren't they weren't possessed or influenced. Personally, for me, it's like, yes, that's part of it, but also, just like a Ouija board, right? It opens up that door. It opens that door for potential manifestation. That's my theory. I think, to me, there's still a connection, because we're still spiritual beings. We're internal beings. This physical thing is going to rot and die, but we're still spiritually there. I mean, what's your guys' thought on that? I was just curious. That's just kind of my thought. I'm not saying it's fact, but that's
Right.
just.
Well, one of the things, like I say, and you can think about it from a couple different angles, so to speak. One of the angles that I have a common thought process is, if I get called by somebody to come into the house, I usually get a pretty good feel for that person in the interview.
Mm.
And I go to the house. If there is some level of instability, I can still go in there and provide a opportunity for any spirits in that area to cross and to move on, to be reconciled. And I can still provide some opportunities for them to maybe grow in how they can protect themselves and come closer to Jesus, so that they can heal
And move out the unclean if
and move out the unclean energy if we run into it. So we can do that laundry. And then if they are still there, and we just had a case last summer where we did all that, and the lady did end up going and getting us a psych evaluation, a couple weeks after, because everything we did didn't really, it resolved a few things, but not everything. They realized that it definitely was something. But we're not talking about a case where, the lady was completely taken over like an exorcist.
Right.
In many of our cases, we find that the exorcism is a lot in the house. It's removing items out of the house.
Yeah.
That might be a problem. Or the vulnerability in their protections and their grounding.
Right.
And we talk all through the grounding and what we think would help them. Have you been baptized?
Yeah.
Well, we find out the one child that's getting harassed is the only child in the family that wasn't baptized, or different things like that.
Yeah.
We ask all those tough questions.
So, yeah, that's good. So you try to evaluate everything as for what it is, but obviously the intent is to help people, whatever that looks like, different approaches like you guys do, right?
Right.
One of the things that I would definitely want to ask too is, when it comes to people who are possessed in exorcisms, has anything, just curiosity, like manifest where they knew your name, spoken differently, the typical exorcism thing, like a different voice, anything that you can share that's been like, whoa, this person's not well. Has anything like that kind of came across you guys?
Well, we've had, on occasion, where the face has changed a little bit, or the voice has changed.
sometimes even different languages.
Yeah. And, but not so much to the level that you'd ever see on TV.
Right.
We've never experienced that level. Like I say, we've had people that experience, like you said, where you're in the bed and you can't move and blah, blah, blah. And night after night, some strange things are crawling on your bed and they're not letting you talk. And then we find out that there's something in the bedroom that is causing this type of activity. In some cases, maybe something was brought home. I mean, there's always so many times there's something that is causing it that we find.
Well, and the unclean, the unclean has a different approach, or like a similar approach to a haunting. So there's a knocking, the footsteps, you mentioned oppression and all that, and so that's where that exorcism comes in of the house. That's one thing the Catholic Church does too, is they do an exorcism on the house.
Right.
They have a ritual for that as well. And
you buy a new house, you come in, hey, Father Maligan, can you come in and bless us?
Right.
That's correct. Yeah, they'll do that, house blessings as well as an exorcism of the house. So so that's a lot more what we deal with.
So
than the actual person itself.
So I have an interesting question for you guys. I'm curious on this one. So there's been, you see a lot of movies from The Exorcist and all that. And, again, we talked about how there's a lot of that shock value. I know the Exorcist movie was profound. It's based on, I'm sure you guys know this, based on a true story regarding wasn't a girl, it was a boy, right?
Yep.
And, but is there any movies where you're like, this one's very accurate in a way? Anything that stands up to you guys like that's a pretty good close accuracy or attempt of what goes on when it comes to things like this?
I watch a lot of horror, so I mean there are things definitely that are realistic.
Yeah,
and they go over the top, and they go for as many scares as they can, of course. But yeah, some of it's based on the real thing.
Well, like the Conjuring, right? The best of the Warrens and so forth. I know this. I mean, I don't know how much. Like I said, Hollywood likes to do the extreme and enhance the versions of the stories, right? There's one movie that stands out to me. I'm not sure if you guys seen it, called Nefarious.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yep.
I'm just curious, Mark, what's your thoughts on that one? That was a pretty interesting take.
That's the one in the prison, right?
Yeah.
Well, one thing, I felt bad for that inmate.
Yeah.
Because he really was the victim in that.
Yeah.
Being overridden by that thing, and that's what caused him to die, really.
Yeah, it was interesting because you got this demon that's pretty much telling the whole game plan of what they do, right?
Yeah.
And in the movie where he doesn't say Jesus, but he says the carpenter, because they won't say Jesus, right? And I thought that was pretty interesting. My next question with you guys, I was thinking about this because you talk about how they're, people have different situations, either if it's the house itself or something like that. Have you guys ever ran into any? Okay, how about this? The work you're doing, and people out there, I don't know if you know this or not. It's a very dangerous field. It is. Have you guys had any issues with anybody try to attack you, like any cults or anything like that, or try to do something to you? I'm just curious because I've heard of stories like that. Has anything come across like that, or you've been like, hey, no, we've been fortunate and good? Has anything came across to you like that? Because I hear that cults will do something like that when somebody's trying to do the work you guys are doing.
Well, I think that there's been, coming off of a case.
Yeah.
There's a residual that hangs with you for a while.
Yeah.
And the potential for a few attacks.
Okay.
But again, everything goes back again to really having a good, strong foundation and good protections through Christ. And if you got your ducks in a row, there's very little that they can do.
Okay.
So there's been some mild interference, nothing really too menacing or anything. Like Russ said, with the foundations, we typically thankfully don't have to deal with that.
Good. Okay, it's good. Now I'm going to throw a little curveball question on this one. So, and this is me going, people ask me like this, I won't forget when I first started this podcast. What does UFOs and Bigfoot got to tie into each other? My answer was nothing or everything. We don't know, right? There's a whole world out there we don't understand because we're in a very controlled society in a way. There's been a lot of reports coming out lately with, the UAPs in Congress and all that stuff and extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings. But there's also a lot been shared regarding the spiritual element as well. Have you guys given any thought in regards to that, or just kind of just curious? Like, what's your guys' thoughts regarding some of that stuff, or any, yeah.
So we've encountered odd things out there.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like the UFO realm, I don't know.
The UFO part of it is not as common for us. We have the occasional instances. We've both had them. Like a couple of weeks ago, I was up in northern Minnesota, and I step out of this cabin we're at, and I'm just in the yard, and I'm looking up at the stars, and I can't help but notice there's no less than at least 10 different little lights. They look like gnats. They were so far up there.
Yeah.
But there was like two groups of 3 or 4, and they were moving across the sky like in a formation like this. 3 would move, and this 4 would move. And then they kind of went off this way, and then a couple of them come in, and then a satellite went by, and they ducked at the satellite left, ducked at the satellite left. And while this is going on, I'm hearing footsteps in the woods. I hear strange kind of metallic noises echoing in the woods in different spots, and different things are going on. And I'm telling you, these things are so far up there, they're like no seeums. They're
Right.
so high up in the sky. But I'm feeling the energy down on Earth. And I'm like, I run in and I grab another person. I said, come out here.
Right.
And I wanted somebody else to verify that these little lights are moving around just randomly. And I've seen, satellites many, many, many times. These aren't satellites by any means.
Well, satellites just go straight. They just don't dance.
Right. They're not dashing back and forth and moving in military formations and stuff. So then I get somebody to look at it. They're like, yep, no doubt, I see them. So then when they go in, I follow them in. I just want to get something to drink or something, And I come back out probably about 12:15 or so, and I walk outside, and I feel immediately that the energy is completely different at this point. I look up at the sky, and even the stars look different. I don't see any small ones at all. The sky looks plain Jane to me.
Mm-hmm.
All of the noises in the woods are gone. It's silent. There's no knocks. There's no footsteps. Everything is completely gone. It's like all of a sudden, whoosh, somebody just turned a big page in the book.
Jeez. Wow.
At that same place, we were walking down the trail, and we saw a weird light anomaly in the trees.
Big flash.
And at right about that same time, something was like pacing us in the woods. We couldn't see it, but it was like walking with us. I think with Bigfoot too, we see a lot of paranormal around it.
Yeah.
Getting EVPs and seeing spirits. And
the essence is, once you're involved, like I say, there's a connection supernaturally between, interdimensionally and supernaturally between aliens and UFOs.
Yeah.
The cryptids field, all the different types of cryptids, and the paranormal.
Yeah.
It's all kind of utilizing some of the same space. And once you're in, you got a foot in it, and they know it. They all know you. That's just how it works.
And that's a great segue too, because, before I go into that segue, that's my same thought exactly. Is that, when I first was younger, I was thinking about UFOs being, aliens from outer space, they come abduct you, do experiments, and then leave you, right? And that's it. And you're just this, experimental thing. And it seems like it's becoming more confusing and complicated of what it is and why. And I have many theories, from demonic to Nephilims to whatever they could be. And you can recall it. It's funny. Sometimes when I hear what's going on, I have to look back at the Bible about Nephilims and how they're the mighty men of God, and all the stuff they created and the incredible technology that was there. And it's almost like now it's coming back and recycling itself into what's happening. And and that's where I kind of like, what if they are all connected? I had a person in Kathleen Tedder on my interview who was another great friend, introduced me from Gary White, who I had him and Randy talk because they were just awesome. I was like, these guys get along. Who says that she has experiences with both the Bigfoot and the different beings, different from different galaxies or interdimensions, and then she has her abduction. I'm like, man, where's the connection, right? The connection will say it's all paranormal because it's not normal in our world. Right. That's why I asked. That's why when someone, again, going back to the point, it's either nothing or everything. I have no idea. All I know is all this topics we're talking about is outside the realm. my other question is to that segue to stop rambling is, how did you guys meet Randy? And I'm assuming you guys have been on his property. And if you have, what has been your experience with that?
Well, I think initially I made contact with Randy, or he made contact with me. We knew we had some thoughts in common
Right.
on the topic. And so I don't remember who contacted who, or who made a comment on whose Facebook page, whatever. But somehow or another, we kind of came together. And it was in very short order that he asked me to come up. And so we have the members on our Search for Spirits team are not necessarily the same members as our Search for Sasquatch.
Right.
The Search for Sasquatch team is made up of members from a couple different paranormal teams.
Right.
So it's kind of a mixed bag of interested people in the field we've just had so many experiences in this field. It just came natural to all of a sudden start investigating these types of cases.
Right.
So Randy gets a hold of me. I've had some experiences up in our research area that were very highly relatable to the ones he had. He said, "Hey, won't you come out?" And so we went out there. And, every time I go there, I have some type of experience. I call them encounters a lot of times. Encounters are almost more descriptive and more information coming out of an encounter than a sighting sometimes. A sighting could be very interesting too. But an encounter where, like the last time I was out there, we were sitting and there's a certain spot when you're sitting by his fire where there tends to be something walking up and checking out. And plain as day, I heard the sticks break and coming down the path and came right to that spot where he has physically seen Sasquatch, the forest people. He's seen them there.
Yeah.
And I hear one walk right up to the edge, basically gets up there, looks at us over by the fire. I'm not seeing him looking at us per se, but I know I can tell that he's just monitoring who's by the fire tonight, what are they doing?
Right.
And after he realizes, he or she, they turn around, and then I hear the sticks break as they walk away. They just kind of roll in there checking things out.
Yeah.
And
well, I'll tell you what's interesting. What's interesting is that Randy, I won't forget this, is that he puts objects out there on that land and so forth. I'm sure you've seen his multiple posts on Facebook.
Yeah.
One thing he says is that they don't like crosses. I don't know if he told you that before.
I know he has mentioned it.
Yeah.
And I know we had a discussion on it. And like I say, and I'll tell you what, I don't listen to a ton, but I listen to some of the primary different people that have conversations about Sasquatch and the variety of different terms and knowledge that they have on it. The thought process, like, whether, Dr. Matt Johnson, I think his name is, or Randy, or yourself, or myself, or this group or that group in the state, we all kind of have a slightly different experience with the forest people.
Yeah.
And Mark and I, yes, I read a lot of stuff, but I want to take the information specific to exactly what I've seen or experienced or encountered. An encounter might be us just having a short conversation. Mark's on a forest trail doing very light, quiet knocks for 20 some minutes with something in the woods, and we couldn't verify it. Verified it was a forest person, but we just assumed it was.
Yeah.
And we know there's other cryptids out there too.
Gotcha.
So we're not quick to judge either.
Right, and no one should be quick to judge. It's like, hey, let's investigate. Let's see how much credence it is. It could be something. It could be nothing. It could be extraordinary. Now, to put you guys a little bit of a spot, and I'm not saying this is fact or truth, unless you're saying it's fact or truth, which I totally respect. With the paranormal, the hauntings and the infestations you guys deal with, and when it comes to like Bigfoot and cryptids and so forth, what do you think, like the Bigfoot and these cryptids, what do you think they are? I mean, do you think they're all flesh and blood, or a bit of both? Like, what's your thoughts on that? Because it's kind of mind boggling. Like when you got skinwalkers, you've got these wendigos, you've got rakers. I don't think I've heard that term before. What's your kind of guys' thoughts on that? Have you guys kind of any theories, or kind of like we just don't know? We just know that they're out there.
You want to start?
Well, yeah. So when you're in a house and it's haunted, that's one thing. But when you're out in the woods and experiencing what could be Bigfoot, with the knocking and it walking around. I mean, the one experience we had, it sounded like the thing was 500 pounds and it was running off. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't know what to think about. That's why we keep going out in the woods and trying to experience and trying to figure out what's what. And to be honest with you, I don't know on that.
Based on the theories that we create on the outings we've had and the encounters we had, I mean, we know that they can disappear right in front of your face, or not even be physical at all. But they also can be very physical. They can leave a lot of structures and
tracks
and different things,
branches,
and people have found what they believe to be scat. People are having, like Randy, physical experiences where the different things are getting colored, whether it be the peanut butter covers or the marbles are getting color coded and set in separate piles per color. I mean, that's extremely intelligent, and that's also extremely physical. So there's a physical element. There's an interdimensional element. I've talked to enough people and had enough experiences that we've experienced where they might change into something else. I think they could change into other animals, personally. I had one walk up to a tree one time, heard it playing a steel, very heavy, and it got to this tree. Matter of fact, it's the same tree where the flash of light was. It got to that tree, and just within a short few seconds later, this giant bird flew off the top of the tree and took off. And I'm not talking even a crow or something. I'm talking something huge. Suddenly just lifted and flew off from the top of that tree. God knows. I can't explain stuff like that.
God knows if it's like that whole Thunderbird type. Well, that sounds like the typical what we people call it, like a skinwalker, whatever that looks like. And it's funny. I'll share this with you. So John, who can be here tonight. So you guys know that movie Twilight, right? The whole vampire and werewolf and that brooding love story, soap opera, or whatever. I found out some information here in Washington is that story wasn't just created because it was just someone who created something, right? So I'm not far from Port Angeles and Forks. I'm about maybe 3 hours away from Forks, about an hour and a half from Port Angeles. And John and I went out there to do a research. It's actually part of film. It's called the Blue Mountain Project. It's a Blue Mountain Schoolhouse, which is very interesting. It's like a tight community within a town. And there's a lot of natives who are in the belief of being werewolves, which is interesting, right? Which is like, Twilight, right? But there's also a heavy belief of vampires in that area. It's not uncommon. I won't forget, after we did the schoolhouse, he told me about his story about encountering his thought of a vampire, a whole different story, with this old lady who was really, intrigued by his two kids. And it kind of like, this is creepy. It's an old lady, but like she looked like old school dress, like some of the 1800s, really weird. So we go to this park where supposedly vampires are at, right? And we both are on our motorcycles and we're riding. I won't forget this. There was this couple walking past us, right? We're riding motorcycles in the park, getting past. And we're riding about another mile or two, and we ran right across them again. And I'm thinking, okay, that's weird. Like they're fast walkers, I guess, but we're on motorcycles, right? Because our motorcycles won't take us that long, but we're measuring our distance. And so like, okay, so we park our bikes, and there was just this weird vibe. And I won't forget this one comment where there was this father and mother and their daughter, and the daughter were walking past them saying, "Dad, I want some more blood. I want some more blood." Freaked us out. I'm like, that is just weird, and it could be nothing. It could be kids being nice. It's like, okay, we got on our bikes. It personally bought me chills, and I got goosebumps. Like, we're getting out of here. We got out of there, So basically, it's like there's so much out there we don't understand, and there's almost like a fine line between folklore and truth, and how there's a line between where there's that kernel, right? Yeah, man. So the other questions, I know we're running a little long here, is besides the investigations that you guys done, do you guys go more nationally? Do you go around the world, or is it kind of more around where you're at when it comes to what you do with the investigations with the paranormal and even the cryptid?
Well, a lot depends. As far as cases go, most of our case calls are within Minnesota, I would say, by far, Wisconsin.
Mm.
But, we both travel our share.
Mm.
And like I said earlier, once they kind of know you, they know you. And so I might be out at Deadwood, out in the middle of the back roads back there somewhere, and I had a great experience out there. I woke in the middle of the night, something woke me up. And twice I heard something fly over the top of the camper. And this thing that flew over was so big, I mean, it shook the camper when it flew over the top. And after it flew over the second time, I'm like, what the heck is going on here? I'm just trying to dial in with my mind and on any energy. And suddenly I just black out on the spot. I'm already laying in bed, but I black out, but I go directly into a vision. And I have a lot of telepathy with mainly the Sasquatch, the forest people. And I'm sitting outside the van in the grass communicating with a female Sasquatch. And she's showing me a different hand thing. Of course, I don't remember what any of them meant, which is kind of the nature of this. We experience a lot of things, but we don't always get the explanation behind it.
Yeah.
But, I might be out at the Patterson-Gimlin site and have an experience out there.
Yeah.
Or he might be out in Boston having an experience out there at a paranormal place. And a lot of that stuff is going on. So we travel and we get to a lot. We've been to Wisconsin and a lot down in Iowa.
Yeah. And as far as some cases go, we'll do cases over the phone. So we did one in New York that we took care of.
Yep.
I've done some in Kansas,
Arizona,
and Oklahoma. So if we have somebody contact us, we can help them over the phone.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Cool.
Like the New York guy, we spent quite a bit of time on the phone with, and I think we kind of vacillated to actually considering going out there for a hot minute, but we took care of it. So
we sent a care package out there of blessed items for his home. And after he put the blessed items in his home, within a day or so, he contacts us. All exclamation points. My house has never been this quiet since we put these blessed items in here.
Hey, it's like Jesus and that Roman soldier, right? Hey, you don't need to come and just say the word, man.
Right.
Say the word, right? Brother, you don't have to physically be there, and it's by choice by that person.
Right.
And that's cool. My gosh, you guys are like the Winchester brothers of Supernatural with the cool beards. And I love that show, by the way. So what was I gonna? Oh my gosh, I hate when I have brain farts. I'm like, oh my god, because I have 20,000 different questions. So here we go. With that being said, and what you guys are continuing to do with the work that you're doing, what's your next venture that you want to expand on with the investigations? I know you've gone from the paranormal, hunting type of thing that's going on, and out into the Bigfoot and the cryptids. Is that kind of the next venture for you guys? Is are you just like, hey, we're just doing what we're called to do, and whatever comes our way, we just do what we need to do? Like, what does that look like for you guys?
I think that's the big thing right there. Just do what we're called to do. Like the Bigfoot and cryptid thing is, it's almost a hobby. Like, we're having a great time with it. We'll get called sometimes for cases with it, but I don't know. We're having a blast.
Yeah, because there's an ebb and flow with the paranormal.
Yeah.
Like, we might get a flurry of cases, like 3-4 in a row. We're just busy for a month and a half. And then all of a sudden it cools down for a month and a half. When it cools down, we take that opportunity to continue to research in our research areas and follow up on maybe some, we just were at Reamer, Minnesota at the big Bigfoot days, they call it. That's what they call it.
Yeah.
And we had a number of people tell us their stories. So I got 2-3 people I'm going to sit down with and visit and hear about their story. And maybe we'll go out and check out their areas,
Awesome.
and different things like that. So there's never a quiet spot. I mean, we will fill it up with something if it is quiet, because we got plenty of challenges out there. And we also get a lot of just, like I say, straight up spiritual warfare that aren't always all paranormal, or they may not be cryptid. It's just people that call or text and email saying, hey, I got these questions, I'm stuck, or this. What's your advice? And we answer a lot of those. We take a lot of those types of questions in too.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So, before, I know we're going up on an hour 12, and I know it's later on that guy's side for you. Two questions I want to ask you is, for those who are listening to this podcast and hearing your stories and your experiences and your hearts and your passion of what you guys are doing, how can they reach you? And is it possible I can put a link if you have anything to share on my podcast for them to reach out to you? Is that a possibility? Or
absolutely? The primary link to our webpage is russvictorian.com, russvictorian.com.
Okay.
And within the realm of that page is the Search for Spirits, Search for Sasquatch, Search for Heaven, and some other stuff that I work on, some other products. And so if you get to russvictorian.com, you'll find most of it all there. But if you're just looking at like YouTube, then you can search each one up individually.
Okay, perfect. No, that's perfect. And thank you for that, because I want to make sure to get to, because like we're all a team here, right? It's not about who has the most experience. I don't believe in that capitalism garbage when it comes to this thing, because it's something that shouldn't be sensationalized and give it power.
Right.
So it's like, we need to research this. We need to, to acknowledge that it's real and know how to protect ourselves. So those who are really in trouble and need help, it's not just what John and I do, but also what you guys do, because we're on the same team. And I want to make sure that people have that link for you guys, because that's an important thing, that people are safe in here and blessed from you, right? The last question I have for you guys is, any last thoughts you want to share here with the people out there? What's anything you want to share with them? Anything that you want to kind of, encourage people on, and when it comes to what they're dealing with and those who feel lost?
Well, I feel that, and like you just kind of almost broached the topic there just a little bit.
Yeah.
But you know what? We all may have a slightly different mission. We all have slightly different missions from God.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't all have the same sensitivities. Mm-hmm. We don't all have the same purpose down here. Mm-hmm. And there's many things to think about this avenue. There are no rights or wrongs in many cases. And that's why Mark and I are very specific. We have many years, upwards of 500 cases at the minimum that we've handled. And we don't talk about stuff unless it is something that we've personally experienced and worked on ourselves. I've known people, I know people right now that wrote how to handle your paranormal issues, and they wrote it based all off watching TV. Never even been to the field. So you have to be careful out there. You have to be careful out there with the people that are inviting you into scenarios A lot of people, and I don't hold it against them. They're trying to do different things in the field, and but they might be teaching people things that are dangerous, and people start getting into things, and all of a sudden we have cases involving, like I say, tarot cards, pendulums, different things. I'm not saying that this in the wrong hands, or we are we don't suggest it to anybody that they try this kind of stuff.
Right.
This isn't for just anybody to pick up. If for some reason you feel that Christ is leading you to some type of thing like that, but you have to be able to discern it. And how do you discern it? What is good and bad in life is you have to have that moral compass. You have to have a grounding and a foundation that has taught you and provides you, the Holy Spirit provides you discernment over what you shouldn't touch and what you should,
Yeah.
Well, where's he guiding you? Somebody, God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit is guiding you, and you got to go with that. If it's not, you don't know what's guiding you. What else could it be?
Yeah.
And I would say too that I know for sure there are people out there that are experiencing things, and they try to tell somebody, and the people are like, "Oh, you're just crazy. You're imagining it, or whatever." And something we hear a lot. They'll sit down and say, "I know you'll think we're crazy." Well, we don't. So,
Right.
if you have a problem, reach out. You're not alone. So
cool. All right. Awesome, man. No, thank you very much, guys. I'm having you guys stay on after I end the podcast here. Everybody, I just want to say, Russ and Mark, thanks for being on here. This has been just a huge pleasure and an honor for guys who are just have such great experience in the field, but not just the experience, but just the passion and the love to help those out there. But also, in addition to having inquisitives to try to know more and understand what our reality is compared to what's been presented us to in our society. And I really appreciate that. Everybody, how can you reach us? boundtotruth34@gmail.com. If you have questions, comments, insults to me, that's fine too. Also, if I'll put the link with the Search for Spirits with Russ that he gave out as well. But if you're like, hey, I'm kind of shy, can I reach out to you first, Chris? Fine, reach out to me on BoundTruth34. I'll be glad to share it to Russ and Mark and connect with you. We're also on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Buzzsprouts, Facebook, X, Instagram, Threads, all those fun little channels. But other than that, everybody, we want to wish you a blessed night from God above.
Absolutely.
And again, see you on the other side.
Thank you.
Have a good night.